Desde que Donald Trump decidió postularse como candidato presidencial, los discursos de odio y racismo contra los mexicanos, incluidos aquellos que emigraron a los Estados Unidos, han causado un deterioro importante en nuestras relaciones bilaterales. Frente a esta realidad, algunas figuras políticas en Estados Unidos han tomado la iniciativa de salvaguardar y fortalecer la relación estratégica que existe entre ambos países, enfatizando los beneficios que genera una política migratoria abierta y responsable. En la vanguardia de este movimiento se encuentra John Hickenlooper. Geólogo por vocación y emprendedor por decisión, John Hickenlooper ingresó a la política a los 50 años de edad, cuando ganó la alcaldía de Denver bajo el estandarte del Partido Demócrata. A partir de entonces, su trabajo lo ha colocado en el centro del escenario político estadounidense, ahora como gobernador de Colorado. John Hickenlooper es hoy nuestro invitado en la era de las definiciones.
Muy buenas noches, amigas y amigos. Qué gusto estar nuevamente con ustedes. Gracias por ver nuestro programa, gracias por escribirnos. La verdad es que nos orientan mucho hacia dónde caminar y hacia dónde movernos. Ustedes van a ver dos programas que hicimos en Colorado. Uno con el alcalde de Denver y otro con el gobernador del estado de Colorado. Ambos líderes sumamente interesantes, pero la característica de ambos es que han sido simpatizantes, han sido amigos de nuestros queridos paisanos allá, los tratan con mucho decoro. Ciertamente siempre hay que aplicar la ley, pero aquí en este caso se hace de manera muy respetuosa y de manera muy, yo diría, hasta amigable. Por eso es tan importante en estos tiempos de dificultad platicar con ellos, líderes que están al frente, que toman decisiones, que tienen coraje, que no hacen sus decisiones basados en cuántos votos van a ganar o cuántos votos van a perder, sino lo hacen basados en ser verdaderos jefes de Estado, estadistas que ven más allá de una elección. Entonces hoy está con nosotros the Governor of the State of Colorado, John, and which is going to give us a lot of good thoughts, a lot of ideas of what's going on in United States.
Tiene que decir Hickenlooper. Tiene que decir.
A ver, tell me back again the second. Hickenlooper.
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 That's it.
That's him, John Hickenlooper, Governor of the State of Colorado, which I'm proud to be sitting here with him. He invited us to come to Colorado with the idea of building bridges, of working together between Mexico, United States, including Canada, because North America is great and it's competitive and has a great future because of this partnership that we have held for so long. So thank you, Governor. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. And usually I like to start ask my invited guests to start with a little background of your childhood, school, basic school, then maybe high school, college, and I understand you also were in business, you were on private sector. We will talk about that also. So thank you for being with us.
So, primera, lo siento, quiero hablar en español, pero no puedo, no recuerdo bastante de español, pero próxima vez yo voy a conversar en español. Pero lo siento.
Qué bonito detalle.
I was raised, and I start to speak Spanish. I was raised as a Joven in Philadelphia on the Atlantic Ocean. My mother was widowed twice, so her first husband died in World War II. My father, she had two children. She married my father, had two more children. Then he died when I was 8 years old. So I had a very, very strong mother who raised 4 children by herself, and basically told each of us that no matter what life does to you, you have to find your own joy. You have to take responsibility for your own life, for your own happiness. So I went to the university. I wanted to be a great writer. I was not so good. So I pivoted at the end, and I got a master's in geology, geología, and came to Colorado when I was a young man. This was after, when I was 23, I drove from Berkeley, California, down to Nogales, and then through Guaymas, and then across Mexico, and all the way down to Costa Rica in an old Volkswagen by myself.
Wow.
And this was when I was 23 years old, and I fell in love with Mexico. That was an experience I'll remember for the rest of my life. And I came back and had to finish my degree in geology, and then I came out to Colorado. And ever since then, most of my friends would go to France or Germany for vacations or for culture, and I always wanted to go to Mexico or to Peru. I wanted to feel the Latin influence in this hemisphere. So I came out to Colorado as a geologist. Unfortunately, the price of oil went debajo. And in 1986, my company was sold. They needed no more geologists. So I was given severance, but everyone was laid off. And that's when in 1988, took 2 years, I opened a restaurant that brewed its own beer. So un restaurant con cervecería. And it was the first one in the Rocky Mountain regions. Now there are over 4,000, we call them brew pubs, right?
Yes.
Brewery and restaurants. Over 4,000 in the United States, but we were the 9th in the United States. And we then started opening other restaurants in Colorado and then in other states across the Midwest of the United States. And suddenly, and you know what it's like in business, you work very hard. Suddenly one day, I was rich. The first 4 years I paid myself, again, a lot of money in standards for much of the world, $24,000 a year. But suddenly I didn't have to work at all. And that's when I ran for mayor of Denver. I did that for 8 years, and then I ran for governor in 2010.
How much space you need to brew beer in a restaurant? Is it a small machine, or how do you do
It
it?
depends on how big the restaurant. So ours is about the size of this room, maybe 150 square meters.
Yes.
So not a lot.
You bottle the beer, or
no,
you
well,
just
no,
put
no.
it on a glass?
We just put it in a glass. Because
Dispenser.
you don't have to pay for the bottle. You don't have to pay for the label. You don't have to pay a distributor. It's such a beautiful capitalist system because you just make the beer and you sell it for the same thing that everyone else is paying. For the fancy beer, they'll pay $3 or $4 for a pint, for a liter.
And the cost is $1.
Oh, less. I mean, it's a great
too
business. It's a great business.
And the formula, everybody can make a beer?
I had been a brewer in my kitchen, what we call in the United States a home brewer for many years because it was less expensive. My mother grew up in what we call the Great Depression.
Yes.
So my mother would wash, do you know what saran wrap is? The
Yes,
plastic
yes,
wrap?
yes.
She would wash it and reuse it. She would take tin foil, the Alcoa, and she would wash it and reuse it. My mother never bought a dress. She sewed everything herself. That's why she raised us very independent. Anyway, so I brewed my own beer, but I wasn't an expert. So when I opened the restaurant, I found a partner who was a national champion brewer. And that was wise.
And you depart from grain? You buy the grain and then you
malted
start
barley.
working? The whole process?
Yeah. You take the malted barley, you grind it up, you soak it in hot water. I would tell the little ladies from Dubuque, Iowa. Dubuque, Iowa is a very small city in the middle of the country, very conservative. And they would come on tour buses to my restaurant. And I explained to them fermentation, how beer is made. You grind up the grain, you put in the hot water. The hot water changes the starches to simple sugars. Then you add in the yeast, little microorganisms,
Yes.
little creatures, and they eat the sugar and they procreate. They basically fall in love, get married, and have children like crazy. Except that it happens so fast, it's really like an orgy. Mm-hmm. And so that's why you have to keep everything clean, and you have to keep the temperature very constant, because just like with an orgy, you want to make sure that the only people that are there are the ones you have invited.
reason to move from Philadelphia west or southwest and then to Mexico was just adventure, just looking for?
Yeah.
Or you knew where you were going and what were your plans?
No, it was adventure. I was young. I wanted to live life. I wanted to follow my curiosity and my passion. And I wanted to be able, when I got older, I wanted to be able to look back on my life and say, I did everything. And so going to Mexico and driving through, when I got married, I decided that one of the parts of Mexico I had visited but I'd never spent time was in Oaxaca. So for my luna de miel, by this time I had many restaurants, I was successful, so I took 4 weeks for my honeymoon, for my luna de miel, and we went to Oaxaca. And so every morning we would take Spanish lessons to try it. Obviously I needed more lessons. But then every afternoon I would take cooking lessons at a woman's house way up on the side of the hill. And so I am the only governor in America. I have a little cookbook and I can make 5 different kinds of mole.
Wow, and that's the specialty of Oaxaca.
Exactly. We were
mole negro.
So, exactly, mole, all the different moles.
It has a great cuisine, Oaxaca, maybe the best in Mexico, the most diverse. It's beautiful. It has a lot of indigenous origin, but also has some European blend. I know where you got the recipe.
Exactly. We have many Oaxaqueños
sí.
From that part of Mexico that live in Colorado. And so when I try to build relationships, I compare my recipe with their recipe. And of course, I'm a politician, so I know that their recipe is always better.
And all this time traveling Mexico, well, this time you were on your honeymoon with your wife, but you went there by yourself to Mexico at that time?
Yeah, I was completely drove across
myself. That
myself.
time it was very peaceful. We didn't have the violence that we have today.
Well, I felt it was safe, but people told me it was not to drive at night because the campesinos might be walking and I might not see one. Yes. But I was late, so I had to drive at night. And one night when I was driving along the high plains, the plateau, what do you call it, Altiplano, outside Mexico City, I was maybe 2 hours east of Mexico City, and beautiful night, full moon. And all of a sudden the policia, or the National Guard, the Guardia.
Sí, policía, we call it policía.
But they were young boys. They were 16 or 18 years old, but they had guns. And they pulled me over. And it was 10 o'clock at night, full moon. And they had the guns, and they asked me to, and, I was 23 years old, so there was all kinds of garbage and food wrappings in the back of the car, Volkswagen Fastback. And so they said, take it out. So I started taking the sleeping bag and my backpack and everything out, and I had a banjo. And a banjo looks like a guitar except it's round at the bottom. Yes. And they saw the banjo and they thought it was a weapon, a gun, and they cocked their weapons. And they said, hombre, cuidado, cuidado. I said, yes, momentito. I said, música. They go, música? And so I pull the banjo out, I open it, and I take it out, and they see it's an instrument, and I play a chord, and they smile, and they go, música, toca. And so I start to play. One of the young soldiers goes back to one of the police goes back to his pickup truck, Toyota, and gets a guitar. And then we spend the next 30 minutes.
A duo.
Well, they all sang. Everyone sang. But he played guitar, I played banjo, and there were 7 of us singing. We'd sing one song in English, one song in Spanish.
Cielito lindo.
We sang Cielito lindo, exactly. But under a full moon in this beautiful, I could not see another light or another house and it was so romantic. And so, because I was scared for a moment, and then they became my family.
Okay, we have to cut a little bit. We're going to a break, and we will come right back.
All right.
Ok, estamos de regreso. Governor, what was your first campaign? How it was, and based on what issues?
So I had never run for any office until I was 50 years old. I was a successful restaurant owner. I owned, at that time, 14 restaurants. And I ran for the mayor of Denver. And Denver, the mayor of Denver is one of the most powerful mayors in America. He makes the entire budget. There are only 13 city council members. And if they change one line item of his budget, they need 9 out of 13 votes. Wow. It's a great system for the mayor. Yes. Mayor has total power. So, but many people running. And so I said I would not do any negative advertisements, no attack ads. I said that I would only talk about a positive future for the city of Denver. And people told me you have no chance. You have no experience, no chance. But in the end, I won 2-1. I got 66% of the vote. And I brought in people from business and all different walks of life to make my administration not just political, but responsive to take the ideals and the ideas of small business, common sense, and use them in government. So we did well. We got a good start. In 2 years, the Time magazine ranked me the second best big city mayor in America, which is crazy. But we over the first 2 terms, we made government smaller, less employees, but we dramatically expanded our services, and we also, the city of Denver is surrounded by suburbs, and so we built a relationship with all the suburbs to build light rail and tracks, which we all paid for evenly, which no one in the United States has been able to do since. And so that when I ran for governor in 2010, all the suburbs supported me. And so I was the first mayor of Denver to become elected governor of Colorado in 150 years.
Desde que Hickenlooper tomó riendas del condado de Denver, su visión se enfocó en reforzar el tejido social a través de la implementación de políticas públicas transformativas para la vida local. Con la implementación de su programa político liberal, Denver fue galardonada al poco tiempo como la segunda mejor metrópoli de los Estados Unidos. Sus mayores éxitos se concentraron en la generación de empleo y el desarrollo industrial, primero a nivel local y ahora a gran escala en todo el estado de Colorado. El progreso que se ha experimentado en el estado de Colorado no solo ha traído beneficios a los ciudadanos estadounidenses, sino también a los migrantes. Aunque resulta controversial para algunos, John Hickenlooper considera a los migrantes una fuerza de trabajo fundamental y también vital para su país. Por ello, decidió en el 2013 prohibir la revisión obligatoria de los papeles que atentaban en contra de los migrantes, una orden que se mantiene firme hasta la fecha.
Okay. So at that time, when was that? How was the economy? It was a fluent economy, growing, or it was tough?
So in 2003, when I was elected mayor, it was a recession, right after the dot-com bubble. So we had to make many budget cuts, but we tried to be strategic, and we tried to cut everything evenly in proportion to its value to the citizens. And then the economy started doing better. But then we had the recession in 2008 and 2009. So that's when I ran for governor. So when I came in as governor, I had a difficult economy. But when I was elected in 2010, Colorado was 40th in what we call job creation, the number of new jobs created every year. We were 40th. Then when I ran for re-election in 4 years, we were 4th. And now we are first.
How that happened? What is the proposal? What is the program? Attracting people?
Exactly.
It's basically that, an investment.
Yeah, you attract people and investment. We went through all the places where government has red tape. You know what red tape is? Bureaucracy.
Yes.
Too many rules.
Yes.
So we got rid of a lot of the red tape. We expanded access to capital, so a young person could start a business. We'd give them a little bit of a loan to get started. we made it as easy as possible for businesses to start and to grow. But at the same time also, we promoted music, we promoted the mountains, we promoted in metropolitan Denver now, there are 1,600 kilometers of bike trails where you can ride your bicycle, not on a road, but on a special trail for the bicycle. It's more than anywhere. There are more live music venues, places where you can go to have a drink and hear live music. There are more live music venues than there are in Nashville, Tennessee, or Austin, Texas, which are famous American cities for music. We became the attraction for young people. And so now we are the #1 state in America for what we call millennials, right?
Yes,
the young people
yes.
17 to age 35, this is where they want to live.
And this was based originally on tourism promotion, because tourism accounts for many small, medium-sized businesses related to food, gastronomy, music.
Yeah.
Is that the detonator?
That was the detonator. That was the start to attract people to come experience what we call the quality of life. But then we also made sure they had capital. Many of those young people wanted to have their own business, and they were technology. They were aerospace. Some of them were manufacturers of unique types of food, higher quality food, maybe a little more expensive. So we, even as we were attracting people through tourism, tourism had them come visit, but then we convinced them to stay and build not just a business, but to build a family and build a life. That was more creating opportunity.
In aerospace, when you mention it, is building planes, or it's building cars, or designing? Or
Everything. So aerospace so Lockheed Martin builds rocket ships.
Okay, yes.
But it is also satellites that provide GPS.
Yes.
It is we are the head of one of the centers of GPS in the United States. Lockheed Martin has a huge office here. You know, in Colorado Springs, we have what's called Northern Command, right?
Oh, yeah.
And Satellite Command, Space Command, and that is a very strong relationship with the Air Force, the Army, and Colorado. So many of those military leaders retire and start businesses. So aerospace aerospace right now, we have more aerospace employees in Colorado on a per capita basis relative to the size of our population. We have more aerospace employees than any other state in America.
Let's get into migration. Originally, at that time when you were elected, was it a quite diverse population here in the state? And how about Latin America or Mexico? There was already quite an expanded population?
Well, there are only a few states in America that have their name is Spanish, Colorado. So when I got elected in 2003, and I was in the restaurant business, and we had many people from Mexico, from Central America, who worked in the kitchens just for the first few years to get their education, then tried to find a better job. But I had a foundation again, I'd been to Mexico many times, so we had many of my employees in the restaurants were legal immigrants. Sometimes they had a green card, sometimes they were citizens, sometimes they were working towards that. But when I ran in 2003, illegal immigration was already an issue. I remember as a mayor, as a candidate for mayor of Denver in 2003, my platform was, of course, recognize that we need businesses should not be paying people under the table. We need accountability. We need an identification system that works. But we need to have a guest worker system because we don't have enough people to do the work that needs to be done. And so my campaign was, I argued some of the Latino community, the Mexican population and South American population got angry. I said, I don't think we should fight over a pathway to citizenship in the United States. I think we should welcome people and give them visas to work. If they want to go back for 3 months to Mexico, they can come back and go back and forth. But we have to have a system where people aren't breaking the law. And I agree. I always watch with amusement your videos on the wall, but I think it's important that we have a border. You know, my wife, when we came back from Oaxaca, my wife said to me, she says, you know, I think the border between the southern border of the United States is very important. It's just it should be down at the southern end of the Yucatan. That's where, in other words, her feeling was that the two countries should be one, and Canada. You know, that the three countries, that the whole of North America probably should be one country. And someday, if we're lucky, that will probably happen. Probably not immediately, maybe 20 years or 50 years, but look at Europe. Yes. People thought that Europe would never be able to trade and function as a separate community, a unique community. And I tell people all the time, I look at, when I meet immigrants, and my wife at the time, she's my ex-wife now, but she wrote a book called Just Like Us. And she met 4 Latina girls, teenagers, when they were seniors in high school. Each one was the best student in their school. Mm-hmm. They all got scholarships, but all 8 of their parents were undocumented workers. And 2 of the girls were legal, one was citizen, one had a green card. 2 were illegal, and my ex-wife followed them for 4 years. Through the university. Yes. And she went to their parties, she went with their little sisters, quinceañera. She became part of their families, and she wrote this book called Just Like Us that really shows that this is our family, right? Where else will we ever find people that have the same religion? Mexico, you know, the United States is so proud of being the melting pot. Mexico is a better melting pot. When the United States wouldn't accept Jews during the Holocaust, Mexico accepted the Jews. Yes. I mean, so that is the argument that I try to make even in these days where there's so much hostility and division about immigration. But I'm an optimist. I think we're going to succeed.
I told you it was going to be very interesting to listen to the governor, because I really think what you're saying is the inner feeling of this nation, is the original philosophy of the founding fathers. Very humane, very human rights assurance, very compassionate in a way. And I'm glad that the Mexican audience is listening to you, because not everybody is so rough, so aggressive as the language we have heard lately. We're going to a break, and we'll be right back. Ok, estamos de regreso con ustedes. Qué plática tan interesante. En el comercial, el gobernador me estaba platicando una pequeña historia. He was telling me about a little history of a lady that has been with him, and that lady happens to be Mexican. But tell us, please, that wonderful story.
So when she came to work for me, and her sister worked for a friend, but she came to work for me almost 20 years ago. And she would come clean the house. So originally it was only 1/2 day a week because I did not have much money. Then it was a full day, and then after a time it became 2 days. I was so grateful because she's so good. She will, if you talk to her when she's working, she will listen, but she continues to work. She doesn't stop. And so now I pay her for the 2 days. If I was paying her for 5 days, I would be paying her $50,000 a year. And I was there. So she had a green card when I first met her. And then about 9 years ago, when I was mayor, maybe 10 years ago, she became a citizen. And I didn't know she was there. She did not tell me. But she was out there where I read she became a US citizen. And then she came up to me. I saw her the next Thursday, 2 days later. And she came and said, "You were so wonderful. now I am a citizen. And I think this is interesting. So, I mean, I trust her. If I leave a $10 bill in my pockets and she finds it, she always puts it out, puts it on my dresser. I trust her with everything. And I asked her, you know, I was thanking her. I didn't ask her. I said, thank you so much. And she says, no, you don't understand. If I was in Mexico, I mean, here I can make $50,000 a year. In Mexico, I would be lucky to make $2,000 a year if I was very, very good and very lucky. And what's interesting, and I think this is the challenge for both Mexico and the United States, she is the type of person that you need in Mexico. And yet, she came here for opportunity and she stayed. If we'd had the right trade relationships, I don't think she would have ever become a U.S. citizen. I think she shouldn't speak for her. I should ask her. Chelly, I'm so sorry. I won't speak for you, Chelly. But I think that
no, but you're right.
Should be able to go back and forth.
Right. You're absolutely right. People coming here, they're not coming to become U.S. nationals. They're coming because they have an opportunity here to get more money, better life than they're having there. But if at the end they can come back to Mexico, they would do it gladly. And this is what is going on today. Today there are more Mexicans coming back to Mexico than before. And what happens is that today Mexico is in a better position to offer them the opportunities they deserve. And this is because Mexico used to grow population at 3.5% and the economy only growing at 2%. So we never met the demand of goods and services that people claim to have. But today it has reversed. Now it's the opposite. A place like the Bajío, where I come from, the economies of those 3 states are running at 8 to 10% gross product a year. So it's moving very dynamically. People is coming back, and fortunately coming back much better prepared with a lot of skills that they didn't have before. So Mexico is going to be enriched with this energy, with this capacity, with this efficiency that they come back with. And so I think this is why we should keep on going. I usually mention that when NAFTA started, you would make the equivalent, let's say, of $1 in the Mexican side, and I put it like this, very funny. If you learn how to swim or how to jump a wall, then you made $10. Who is not responding the same for an incentive like that? Today, 23 years after, one generation now is 5 to 1. So the gap has narrowed. And my guess and my forecast is that in another generation, another 25 years, we will be on a 1-to-1 basis. And this will happen because we're working hard together, because we're building a very strong relationship.
Estados Unidos y México no solo comparten una historia y una frontera. De hecho, ambos países, junto con Canadá, conforman ahora la macrorregión de Norteamérica, la zona económica más dinámica del mundo en términos comerciales. Hoy, la administración de Donald Trump ha puesto todo en jaque. El mayor peligro es la revisión al Tratado de Libre Comercio de América del Norte. Para John Hickenlooper, la relación entre México y Estados Unidos debe ir más allá de las fronteras comerciales abiertas. Debemos integrarnos bajo un esquema económico y también de seguridad. El Telecán, firmado en 1994, busca ser modernizado. Sin embargo, algunas propuestas sugeridas son de verdad preocupantes, sin mencionar que la posibilidad de erradicarlo está presente en cada ronda de negociación, algo a lo que John Hickenlooper se opone. El peligro que enfrenta México sobrepasa la retórica y también a la demagogia de Trump. Las acciones del presidente estadounidense pueden terminar por derribar no solo el principal tratado económico en Norteamérica, sino la relación de amistad y de cooperación que se ha forjado en toda la región. Para John Hickenlooper, la batalla por el futuro de Estados Unidos apenas comienza. Un proceso arduo y complejo que dejará una profunda huella en esta era de las definiciones.
the complaint of the deficit, and maybe we'll get a little bit into economy because you're a governor, you're pretty well aware of what's going on. And the question is this, how can we come with a new NAFTA, come with a NAFTA plus, as we discussed with President Bush at my time. We both agreed that we should move ahead with a NAFTA plus, and then later we came with a third idea that was working for a NAFTA, which would be a project for safety, for security and trade, to involve security on the border and bring order to. So everything we agreed in Mexico to work like that. Now, what is your vision now, your program that you're doing in the state of Colorado in relation to Mexico, in relation to trade? What you think is going to happen in the future?
Well, I am, again, like yourself, I'm an optimist, despite sometimes the worst facts. But I think NAFTA, NAFTA Plus, is what we will have. And we all, both sides, Mexico and the United States, have an obligation to make it better for both. Mm-hmm. Trade is one of those rare places where you can actually have win-win. Not that there can't be losers, and we should try to make sure there are less losers as we renegotiate. But one thing I think the United States has learned, which we did not understand 25 years ago, is that when there are transitions in manufacturing and professions and work, and forget about outsourcing or trade, automation is going to totally disrupt our economies. We need to retrain people, and people are going to have to work harder as students. Even when they're 50 years old, they might have to learn a whole new profession. And we in government, whether it's a state government or federal government, we have to be willing to commit the resources so that everyone has a chance. We give them the training that if they're willing to work hard, they can create a new life, because it's all going to change so rapidly over the next 20 years.
That's absolutely right. This future, which we all want, will make North America not only the largest market in the world, not only the largest consumer market in the world, but also the most competitive region in the world. I think we need each other in that sense, because this NAFTA corporations, I call them, nourish their competitiveness, their capacities with the three economies. And today, these NAFTA corporations are either manufacturing in Mexico, designing and doing the sophisticated part of that in Canada, but the main part, which is the planning, the strategy, the philosophy of the business, the training, comes out of here. And I think it's a win-win situation, as you mentioned it.
Yeah.
Now, how important is how states like those on the border can influence Washington, that we have to be moderate, that we have to look for that win-win situation?
Well, I think most of the border states understand that they have a unique opportunity and that they will lobby, but the United States is a big country, and we have to make sure that the entire country understands the benefits of trade. And so agriculture, one of the big exports from Colorado is meat, potatoes, and we export that to Mexico, to South America, to Japan, to Asia. Those farmers and ranchers, that extra little bit of income for them is critical. It's very difficult to be a farmer in the United States. In Mexico, it's hard work, and you generally don't make huge profits. So that export is the special difference. Well, those rural people, the people in the countryside who work in farms and ranches, they're the ones who elected President Trump. And I think I am out encouraging them to use their voice.
To speak up.
To speak up and to let the Trump administration know that the new NAFTA has to help them as well. It can't just be about trying to get some manufacturing jobs that mostly will be robots in the near future, right? So there's got to be a balance and just a whole new, a new and more successful approach.
Yes, and same is true, for instance, with grain. I mean, the Midwest grain production goes, most of it down south, exported to Mexico, exported to Europe, and you cannot keep those families with sufficient income if it's not that. Dairy, milk, cheese, we import a huge amount of those into Mexico. But anyway, I think we're trading fairly, but it can be improved, as we said, and hopefully we all work together. Right now, before we end, my message to the audience and to Mexico is, here we have a qualified, with moral stature, with ethics, with leadership, a voice that speaks for a good share of American citizens. And this is what brings us hope that we will understand each other, that we will solve our conflicts as we have done in the past, and that we will come with, in the case of trading, with a new maybe NAFTA plus. And about the wall, I mean, I'm surprised that with President Bush, with Senator Kennedy, with Senator McCain, that they came to Mexico. We discussed the whole situation of migration, and there is a bill presented to Congress long time ago, 2003, and it's been sitting there, has not been processed, but it's a very wise, intelligent proposal to manage the migration situation, very convenient to both of our nations. I hope we come back to that kind of discussions that we did in the past. But Governor, really thank you very much. Your voice is going to be highly appreciated in Mexico. I hope we can put together maybe a trade mission one of these days. Guanajuato is growing at the pace of 8 to 10%. Its economy is really exploding. We're full employment right now. Most of that coming from the people that is coming back to Mexico, and is now contributing in our place to develop the economy, to make it more competitive. So you have a home there. Your voice is very important in this moment, and I thank you for that. Maybe you have
just
one final message.
Thank you for the opportunity. And we have, in about a month, we'll have our fourth Biennial de las Americas, where is an effort to bring South America, Mexico, the United States, and Canada all in like a small Davos. But that
bring it here?
Right in Denver. We do it every 2 years. And then last year, in the off year, we went to Brazil. 3 years ago, we went to Mexico. So we try to do some sort of to bring people together, and talk mostly about arts, but also about science, but also about government and politics. But I do think that we are, Colorado's unemployment now is 2.3%. So we are the lowest in the United States, and it's perfect with Guanajuato. And so we should be able to build some bridges and have our businesses trade. And again, trade creates value. You know, if you have too many of one thing, and this other person has too many of something, and you trade those things, everything becomes more valuable. That's how you create wealth.
4 billion years ago, trading was the issue among communities, among civilizations, and we'll come back to that. So thank you very much again. We will see you in Mexico soon, and invite me to that, how did you call it? This
Biennial de las Americas.
Bienal de las Americas. I will come.